Mac and Mac guys here on Birds 365, McMullen McDonald, and we've got the esteemed, long-time writer for the Philadelphia Eagles, doing it nationally now for 33rd team, doing it for us here at JAKIBSports.com, and doing it on Hall of Fame week. I thought we were going to get him on and talk about Hall of Fame, but now we're so deep in the weeds with the Eagles, we're going to stick with that with Paul Domowitch.
We'll talk some Kelce, but yeah, I love Jason, but too much Kelce this week. Too much.
Yeah,
I'm
but
over Kelce.
I need Damo's opinion on the whole Hall of Fame and Kelce thing. But since we were just talking Eagles, we got to go there first. We all agree Jalen Hurts had a drop-off year. There's no way to even sugarcoat that he was at a level. He came down to earth pretty badly last year. And I'm sure we've asked you this question before, probably umpteen times, but I'll ask it to you again because the Eagles have to figure out how to best go forward. Why the drop-off with Mr. Hurts this year? Give me the top two reasons. There are 22 reasons. I'm going to ask you to give me the top two.
Boy, tell the Eagles because they don't know, Damo, too. Yeah, tell them. I hope they're listening.
I think it was a combination of two things, which is how much you're giving me. One is on his, as far as him, I think his decision making really took a big drop downward. Obsession with the deep ball, things like that. Holding on to it too long, those kind of things I think hurt him. And the other is the coaching. Like I've said many times to you guys, defenses adjusted to that offense after 2022. They didn't seem, Nick didn't seem to feel the need to adjust and anticipate what defenses were going to do to him, and wasn't ready for it. I've called it arrogance. I'm not sure what you would describe it as, but we're going to see it obviously change this year.
Yeah. By the way, that's a good explanation, Dom. Well done. Because those were certainly two of the bigger problems with Jalen Hurts. When it comes to Nick, and I do agree with you, there's a lot of hubris, a lot of arrogance, we just got to get better at what we do. You're not the first guy to think that. And other coaches have been very successful with that sentiment. I always bring up Jimmy Johnson back in the day. That was a real simple offense, man. Yeah. 3 running plays. Everybody knew what was coming, and they couldn't stop it. So I think there's some background in Nick's thought that we're just better than everybody else. I get that part of it. But when it's clear that, hey, that's probably not the case, we got to do some different things, I think you got to be able to make that change pretty quickly. I think that was the issue.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that Cowboy offense. The Eagles were much more gimmicky the Cowboys they basically had Emmett Thomas. They didn't care how many people you put up in the box. They were going to slam the ball down your throat.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Troy Aikman's numbers. He belongs in the Hall of Fame. There's no question about that. But I mean, his numbers pale in comparison to passing numbers today because they essentially rode Emmett Thomas,
Emmett Smith. Yeah. But Emmett Thomas was great too. Great defensive back.
So I mean, today's NFL, you can't do that.
No.
You can't change because defenses are going to change, and it's a chess game, and they weren't ready for the rematch.
Yeah.
So is that on Sirianni? How much of that now we're again dividing blame? How much of that is on Nick? And I get the entire offensive coaching staff puts together and is contributing to the game plan leading into Sunday, working it all through, looking at all the angles. But then in the moment, it's one play caller, and it's the guy upstairs who was the former quarterback who was supposed to have a better grasp on Jalen than anyone else since he's known him since he was in diapers. How does that blame get split up? How do you look at if there was an indecisiveness to Jalen's game, the play calling, the hubris, all that in together? How much of that is on the head coach? And how much is that on the play caller?
I mean, I'd put most of it on the head coach, Jody. I'm not saying Brian was without blame, but he was calling plays within the structure of the offense, within the game plan that Nick was dictating. I think as they struggled early on, the relationship between Jalen and Brian kind of went off track. The change from offensive coordinator, from quarterbacks coach to offensive coordinator was different, and they never quite got in sync. I think the offense, the Nick's offense contributed to that, but Brian has to take his share of the blame for not being able to get a guy he's known since he was 4 years old, back on track and believing in what they were doing, even if what they were doing had flaws.
Let's get to Saquon, Damo. You probably heard me and Jody going back and forth. His agent, I didn't look up his agent. I should know that, but I'll look it up. He's doing a good job. I'll say that. Magically, the Eagles are interested in Saquon Barkley, and the Dallas Cowboys are interested in Saquon Barkley, trying to put the squeeze on the New York Giants to make another mistake. What is it about Saquon Barkley, other than the pedigree, tremendous talent, no doubt about that. But if you look at his history in New York, it has not worked out. And you could argue trying to build an offense, you just mentioned, you can't build. I brought up the Emmitt Smith Dallas Cowboys. You can't build an offense like that today. You can't. It wouldn't work.
Especially not with a guy who's had some injuries.
Yeah.
So, you're dealing with that. And no, I can't. On no planet do I see them signing Saquon.
Same here, but it is my buddy Pat Leonard, some really plugged in New York reporters all getting the same information. So you know where it's coming from. And it seems obvious to me. But we've had this discussion with DeAndre Swift, and I know you're a big guy. You're a big get the football in the passing game to the running backs more, and he's successful. My presumption is it's not a strength of Jalen's game. It's not in his DNA. I compared it to L'Jarius Sneed as a corner. If you're bringing in L'Jarius Sneed to play zone like the Eagles play, predominantly zone, you're doing the kid a disservice. He's a press coverage guy. That's what he was successful at. That's what made him a $19 million corner with Steve Spagnuolo. Quarterback, it's more, obviously there's bigger parts of it, but part of it is same thing with Lamar Jackson. Baltimore's not saying, oh, Lamar, you better dump it down to the running back. Be disciplined, dump it down to the running back. The strength of their game is extending plays. And by the way, if they take off themselves, they're probably going to get more than said running back, no matter who it is, whether it's Saquon Barkley, even Christian McCaffrey. Statistically, they're going to get more. Why is everybody so intent on forcing Jalen Hurts to be somebody he's not? I want to accentuate what he does well.
Well, he's become an excellent deep thrower. Except, during that 7-game stretch at the end, his numbers were horrible because teams just wouldn't let him throw deep. And that's what's happening in the NFL if you look around. That's why, John, that's why safeties suddenly are becoming this year's running backs.
Yeah.
Going to pay money for them.
Just cover two, everything.
Right. So, you've got to be happy taking the, short stuff, throwing underneath. And I don't care if it's not part of Jalen's game or if he's not happy throwing to running backs. He's going to have to learn how to do it. It's not difficult to learn. He's got, he's got Gainwell is an outstanding receiver who's not just a dump it off guy. He can run routes. He lines up outside.
Great receiver at Memphis.
Yeah, exactly. You got to take advantage of that because, he at the end last year, he just kept wanting to throw deep, and as we saw how that backfired in a few games. They're just not going to give it to him. So he's going to have to learn to be a different kind of quarterback as teams and defenses adjust to both him and as the league changes.
So let me ask it to you in a simple choose between two way. If the Eagles have the choice, they decided we need an upgrade at running back. That's something we have to factor in to be better, to take a little pressure off Jalen. and the number's the number, $6 million, $5.5 million, whatever it is. And you have your choice of Derrick Henry or Saquon Barkley. Derrick Henry, certainly the better running back, carrying the football, just banging straight ahead, or a guy like Saquon Barkley, who's better at catching the ball out of the backfield, but it's not in the quarterback's DNA. You're paying the same amount for both guys. Which one you taking, Derrick Henry or Saquon Barkley?
They're not going to sign either one. I mean, Derrick Henry is at the end of his career. I mean, look at. I mean,
I love the incredulousness. I'm going to make up a word of Dama.
I mean, look at them. Look at the rest of the league. Nobody is paying, especially them. They were one of the first teams to realize you don't pay running backs. You can pick one up on day 3 of the draft. I mean, it's not going to be no matter who even if Gainwell wasn't there, even if they had nobody, they still would wait, either pick up a free agent cheap, pick up one, like I said, on day 3 of the draft. They are not going to spend a lot of money on running backs in free agency.
If they do, I'm going to assume somebody's got Howie under lock and key. He's a hostage because look, I said before, I guess it's possible because Jeffrey Lurie, we heard Nick Sirianni how many times say, this is my offense, this is my offense. And all of a sudden, Jeffrey said, guess what? It's not your offense anymore. You want a job? All right. Bring somebody else in. I guess he could say to Howie, all right, we've done this for years. It hasn't worked out to this degree. You got to change. But Jeffrey's the guy he's the one where he knows you have to have a high-powered passing game, and he doesn't want to build around a running back. It's just none of it makes sense to me, Dama.
Plus,
none of it.
Their attitude with the running game has always been, it's your line, it's your offensive line that determines the success of your running game, not the quality of your running back. I mean, that there's a level of running back that's going to be good enough to gain yards in any offense that's got an offensive line like that blocking for it.
Yeah.
And Damo's incredulousness sounded a little like Nick Sirianni to me, that his offense. What do you mean questioning my offense? My offense. A little hubris there. But since you've already got it figured out and the Eagles are not going to either spend and or use resources, who is that starting running back the Eagles are going to get with one of their 5th-round picks this year?
A name to be determined. I mean, nobody that's going to knock
Alexander Madison just got cut. He's more likely to be here. He got cut this week.
Yeah. It's not. They don't. I mean, they're going to go find somebody that they think is sufficient to gain yards behind that line. They're not going to go spend a lot of money. I mean, they got so many needs right now. Plus a quarterback that's going to start to make a lot of money. Take up a lot of cap space. They're not going to waste money on a running back.
That I can buy into because they have issues across the roster and they're in good salary cap space, not great salary cap space. So prioritizing building a 53-man roster, you can't be overspending at the running back position. That one we will agree on. All right, we had some debate earlier in the week, Damo. You are our guy here in Philadelphia as the Hall of Fame selector. Jason Kelce, I think, is, and I use this word definitively, a lock to make the Hall of Fame. I think he's a lock. I think he is definitely getting in.
Mm-hmm.
I do not believe he's a lock first ballot Hall of Famer, which I've heard some people say. You've been there for years, part of the conversation, saw the results thereafter, how much a push is made for a guy his first time up. The average is usually over the last, I think I went back 13 years because that's how long Kelce played. Right. The average is like 1.5 first ballot guys each year. It's not 2, it's more than 1, so it's somewhere between 1 and 2. What are Jason Kelce's chances of getting into the Hall of Fame on the first ballot in your eyes?
You know what? Antonio Gates did not make it this year. I mean, what does that tell you? I mean, see, the problem when people say he's a lock first year, they have to realize football's voting system is different than baseball. Baseball, you get what, 70% of the votes, you make the Hall of Fame. Doesn't matter if 20 guys got that many. You're in the Hall of Fame. There's 5 spots every year. There's 50. There's guys that have been finalists for, I'm trying to, people like Torrey Holt. And I mean, you look at the list of last year's finalists, the defensive end from
Jared Allen.
Guys like that have waited 5-6 years. They've been finalists. So that's going to make it difficult. Plus, I mean, he's like you said, he's a lock.
It's a lock Hall of Famer.
Brian Dawkins went in the second year, and Brian Dawkins still is mad about that. But what are you going to do? I think that could be Jason's situation. Makes it on the second year. A lot depends on, like I said, who are the other finalists when he's eligible in 5 years? What other first year? Who else is retiring this year? I mean, is Jason Peters retiring? Is he going to be eligible the same year as Jason? You only got 5 spots. That's why you can't say, like in baseball, this guy's a first-year lock.
Now, because you're a selector, and I know you guys, all of you, I know so many of you, and you all take it very seriously. But I think there's a human nature aspect to Jason Kelce. I brought this up last week, and people killed me. I think Fletcher Cox, because he may retire, is one of the best players in Eagles history. He has a more traditional, I think he's a borderline Hall of Fame candidate, and maybe he's got to play a little bit more to get over the top. He's got a more traditional career, dominant early and then slowly slipping off. Whereas Kelce, he was a solid starter for a while, and then all of a sudden, late in his career, 2017, basically, 2016, 2017, he takes off, and it's all pro. You rarely see that. Then you have the stuff off the field. He's just phenomenal. Leader, teammate, whereas Fletcher's he's a good leader, but he's more of a gruff guy. He'll tell reporters you're a clown on the way out the door. He's not going to make us feel good at times. He says he doesn't like football at times. He's just really good at it. When he's got a bye week, he'll say, I'm not watching football. I want to get the hell away from it. But he's a really good player. And you brought up Jason Peters. Now, Jason Peters, and even Kelce, how long has it been? Every single one of these guys, Lane John, I remember Brandon Brooks at his retirement speech. They speak in awe of Jason Peters. Even Kelce mentioned him. And how long is it? But Jason's still hanging on and playing. He's had some money problems. He's still hanging on. And that sort of disparages what he was in his prime. How much does that off the field, like Kelce's a home run off the field, how much does that help his candidacy?
I don't think the off the field stuff is going to be all that beneficial as far as the Hall of Fame, John. I think it may help that, you mentioned, I mean, most of his all pro recognition came at the end of his career. I mean, he's finishing on top in contrast to Jason Peters, who has done just the opposite. I mean, it's been
hanging on.
You kind of forget that this was a guy that Howard Mudd once compared to Walter Jones, who was the first ballot Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
So maybe that hurts him. I don't know. But Jason, Jason's had such a. There's not a career like it. I mean, 2016. He was going to.
He thought he was going to get traded.
Career. He said there was only the only guy in the organization that still wanted him was his position coach, and then he goes and corrects what he was doing wrong and ends up running all pros almost every year the rest of his career. So, he's the most athletic center I have ever covered in 40 years.
Oh yeah, well that no question about that.
Undersized guy that
by the way, I think he's a no doubt. I think he's a lock, no doubt about it, Hall of Famer. Right. Don't get me wrong, but I think because we were talking about Fletcher, and we'll see if Fletcher retires. Yeah. Boy, I don't think he gets the credit he deserves for his status in this organization at times, and I don't know why. Because
I got it from you, John. You said he's a better Eagle than Jason Kelce. That's what you said, buddy.
I think he's a better football player than Jason Kelce in his prime. It's like I always say, I do my top 25 list of best pure football players every year, Damo. AJ Brown to me is the Eagles' best pure football player right now in this snapshot. For years and years and years, Fletcher Cox was the Eagles' best football player, just best pure football player. And he's not anymore, but he's still solid. And Jody was the one who called him, and it was a very bad defense. So it's like the tallest short guy at the circus called him the most consistent Eagles defender even last year. I said, I thought about it, and I said, you know what? You might be right. And you can certainly make the argument. I don't, and you've been around the Eagles longer than me. I don't think he gets the credit he deserves.
You know,
is he better than Kelce? That's the question. We know that Kelce is officially done. There's a better than 50% chance Fletcher Cox is not going to play for the Eagles again next year. Most likely retirement, maybe go somewhere else. Their careers end at the same exact juncture. Who is a better Eagle, Jason Kelce or Fletcher Cox?
I mean, I'm going to say Jason. You know, Fletcher, I mean, I have a great respect for Fletcher's career. You know, in 2018, he was the second best defensive lineman in the league behind Aaron Donald. Had an all-pro year. I thought he was going to take off from that point. He did not. You know, he did not, you know, fall off the map, but he never was as productive, as unstoppable as he was in 2018, the rest of his career. I don't know why, but that's 5 years after that. So, I mean, that kind of,
like I said, he had the more traditional career. Jason's career is so unique. And but take the Hall of Fame out of it, just locally, certainly locally, the off the field stuff. Jason's the ultimate Eagle, Jason Kelce. I mean, you put Fletcher in the Mummers outfit and give him that personality, and I think it's different. So I think certainly locally, that's nobody, and I say it all the time. I wrote it. Nobody gets Philadelphia better than Jason Kelce. Nobody.
Yeah.
So maybe it doesn't help the Hall of Fame case, and he doesn't need the help, by the way, because he's a Hall of Fame player. But locally, oh yeah, I mean, Jason Kelce's personality and everything off the field, yeah, that gives him a leg up. I mean, I just said AJ's in the prime of his career, so it's a little bit different. Is anybody sitting there saying AJ is the best Eagle? He is. They might know it, but he certainly doesn't have the cachet of Jason Kelce. That's not even close. And people criticize AJ because they think he's a diva and he's complaining and all that stuff and the social media stuff. Yeah, I think the off the field stuff certainly helps Jason locally.
Absolutely.
When you say locally, are you talking about fans, media, everyone?
Fans, media, everything locally, the whole ecosystem.
Yeah, I'm gonna give the media more credit than that. That they're not going to choose someone who's not as good a football player on the field.
Nobody's a great football player. I'm not. I feel like you're trying to say I'm downplaying Jason as a football player. The Eagles have a bunch of great.
Either that, or you're over-evaluating Fletcher Cox. Pick or choose, either way.
Well, I'm talking about Fletcher Cox in his prime. I'm not talking about Fletcher. That's why I try. Often people, and maybe I don't explain myself correctly. He had a more traditional career. Generally,
does traditional make it better? You said he had a better career. You said you believe Fletcher Cox had a better career, Eagle career, than Jason Kelce.
I think at his height, I think at his height, he was a better, more dominant player at his position than Jason Kelce at his height of his career. And that probably lasted 3-4 years. Damo put the apex at 2018. At Kelce's best 3-4 years, I think Fletcher Cox was a better pure football player in that window. I think he reached a higher height as a football player than Jason Kelce. Yes.
How did he only make one first team All Pro?
Well,
Kelce made 6.
Well, he made 4 All Pro teams. I think Fletcher. I don't know. I'd have to.
Yeah, and 1 was first team. 3 were second team. That doesn't come close to me.
Yeah, I get it, but that's what I'm talking about. Part of Jason's allure is some of the other stuff. And I think if you put on the Mummers app, put it on Fletcher Cox, maybe you got 6 or 7. That's what I'm trying to say.
I think the
You
unique.
think all pro? You think first team all pro voters are affected by a Mummers outfit?
Hey, I got a lot of respect for those guys. I talk to Rob all the time, all our Rob Monty all the time. Some guys do a good job. Some guys don't do a good job. I'll just leave it at that.
I think the uniqueness of Jason's style of play was a big reason all pro voters liked him so much. I mean, you just don't see centers that with the athleticism that he had that could get outside and, you know, on screens and outside zone plays and get to the second level like he could. I mean, generally centers are guys you hardly notice on the field. That wasn't the case with Jason. You know, there are only, I think, 10, 11 pure centers in the Hall of Fame. Which
not a lot. Yeah,
which tells you how difficult it is at that position to get in. Again, it's not going to be difficult for him, but I think that's one of the reasons why he stood out, because of the uniqueness of his style of play.
Yeah, and Clark Judge, I had him on my show the other night, said last time a center got in first ballot 42 years ago.
Yeah,
that's a while. Jason's bumping up a pretty good hill if he's going to be getting in the first time. I don't know that that's possible.
Well, guys like Dwight Stevenson and Dermontti Dawson, who are regarded as two of the best centers of all time. I mean, you look, they one was, I think, a finalist for 4 years before he got in, another 5. Again, I don't see Jason having to wait that long.
Yeah.
It's just the reality. A lot of times within the voting, and I think you saw it this year with Antonio Gates, he did not get in when everybody expected him. And who's the other first timer, the edge rusher from the
Peppers? Yeah, he was a slam dunk.
I thought both were going to go in. I think a lot of voters felt there was a log jam at wide receiver, and they, I think that helped Johnson get in. Andre Johnson as this year, because teams said, okay, well, I'm just guessing how voters thought, because it's a secret ballot, but that some thought,
yeah. And I think all Hall of Fame guys. I was just looking up, like, I don't know if we can take those 6-7 years. And by the way, now Jason Kelce. Let me emphasize this: Jason Kelce is one of the greatest Eagles of all time and is a future Hall of Famer. But I think there is, like, to me, the best center in football this year was, and I've been talking about him for years, was the guy in Detroit, Frank Ragnow. Unbelievable player. Creed Humphrey in Kansas City. Sometimes, and I covered one of those centers in the Hall of Fame way back. I got to meet him, didn't really cover him, with Mick Tinglehall. It took him, he was a seniors candidate, took him forever to get in the Hall of Fame. Sometimes you make an all pro and it's not like the Hall of Fame guys. Then it becomes osmosis. All right, click it off. And all of a sudden, all pro. Jason's a great player, but he was all pro this year. And I know 2 centers were better than him. So, in my opinion, as I get ready for my hate mail.
And I don't think you deserve hate mail, but you made a judgment call and said what you said. And and here's where I can go agree with you, John, that the fans here in Philadelphia, if you want to directly say the fans in Philadelphia are underselling Fletcher Cox, believe, and he's not above a guy like Jason Kelce, because Jason Kelce shows all that personality. I got you. National writers making decisions on national positions, I don't think that they're going to vote Jason Kelce over somebody else for a first team all pro because he's a good guy in the locker room. That's not my belief. Maybe I got more faith in the national writers like Paul Domowitch, who's a Hall of Fame selector, in being able to separate.
I have confidence in Damo. I want to put that on the record. I have confidence in Damo. But if I had an all pro vote, I've lobbied to get one from Rob, and I'll lobby again, I would have voted for Frank Ragnow to be the all pro center.
No,
That's
that's
You know, I mean, I like Frank. I didn't compare centers this year because Rob took my vote away this year. So it was the first time in 35 years that I haven't voted for the All-Pro team. So for Associated Press, I can't say if they're Frank or any other centers played better than Creed or somebody like that played
Creed
better.
was that. I got to look at PFF. Let's see what PFF says. Jason was 6th. Number 5 was Eric McCoy of the Saints. Number 4 was Creed Humphrey. Number 3 was Drew Dalman. Number 2 was Connor Williams of the Dolphins. He had a great year, but they got hurt, so that doesn't really matter. And number 1, Frank Ragnow.
Yeah.
Ragnow's a good player. All right, Damo, before we let you go, we got to bring it back to today because we haven't done anything with Hassan Reddick. He is supposedly still out there shopping to see if a team wants to pay him what he wants to be paid in a renegotiated contract. We're getting Saquon Barkley rumors up the yin-yang, but we're hearing nothing on Hassan Reddick and teams that might have interest in him. We are debating on where the Eagles are going to spend their free agent money. Are they going to go more heavily, go above their comfort zone at running back or safety or linebacker? What the hell are they going to do at defensive end if they find a taker for Hassan Reddick and the team gives them a second-round draft pick? And Hassan goes, you better pay me the damn $25 million, because if not, you told me to go out and shop. It was your idea for me to go out and shop. They're giving you a legitimate offer. Now you got to let me go. Who the hell's going to rush the passer for the Eagles? What are they going to do if all the dominoes fall in place for Hassan Reddick to be traded?
Yeah, I still think he'll be back because I just don't see how you can let him walk, considering that that's not a position they're terribly deep in right now. So
you think they're going to, what do you think they'll pay him?
Well, that's the question. And how do you structure it if you give him something, a new deal? I mean, you can't have a deal where he's got plenty. He's got 3-4 good years left, I believe. But, you're also got other guys you got to pay at some point here, although the cap is going to continue to go up $30 million a year probably. So, I mean, it's not going to be as big a problem as I think. But, I mean, when I look at how they should approach this offseason, Jody, whether it's Reddick stays or goes, I mean, I'm putting free agency money in an edge rusher because there's some out there. I think, they can use – I mean, I something tells me that they're looking at this draft and seeing 2002, the Sheldon Leto draft, where that's, they're going to get their cornerbacks and their safety, or at least their cornerbacks that they need in the draft. You get your linebackers and edge rushers in free agency this year.
At P Damo, make sure you follow Paul, the voice of reason on X. I'll leave it here with you. You mentioned safety. Everybody's available at safety, man. They are that. And you talk about Vic Fangio, and all of a sudden, Justin Simmons is out there. Now, that is a very good player.
Yeah.
Talk about a player, but he's post 30. It seems like the Eagles want to get young. They want to get back to that Brandon Brooks mentality of get somebody off that first rookie contract if they're going to go in free agency. Do they fall for the big name trap and say, let's reunite Vic Fangio and Justin Simmons, which would be expensive as well still, I think.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of good young safeties in this class. I mean, guys like Cameron Curl and Julian Blackman, Jordan Fuller.
I think he's the best fit for the Eagles.
Yeah, the question is, how much are those guys going to command? Again, we get back to the point, safeties are the new running backs as far as – I don't think the Eagles are going to pay any safety a lot of money this year. I don't think any team, with a few exceptions of some foolish teams that might get carried away. I think in an ideal situation, they would like to get you reunite Justin Simmons and Vic Fangio for a couple of years. But what's he going to cost at 30 years old? So I don't know. But that's the guy I see coming here at a reasonable salary.
And they have, John likes to point out, always reminds us, they were willing to pay some good money for the safety that went to
Marcus Williams.
Marcus Williams.
Yeah.
So now they didn't get him because Baltimore paid even more. But they were in a pretty high neighborhood for a guy like him. I think there's a better chance they pay more than they usually do for a safety than they do for a running back, which could bring us all the way back to Saquon Barkley. Do we really want to do that dance again? No, I think we ran that one right into the ground. Damo, always a pleasure, buddy. Thank you much for hopping in and your Hall of Fame expertise today. Thanks, bud.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
Thanks, Damo.
You can read Damo at both the 33rd Team and JAKIBSports.com. Jody Mack, John McMullen here with you on Birds 365. We got another good guest in hour number 2. Mike Tanier, one of our favorites, is going to jump in with us. So please stick around. And while you're at it, why not take advantage? I'm going to give you a chance to save some pretty good money here, guys. Birds fans, here's your chance to save up to 40% on car insurance right now at one of JAKIB Sports' great partners. Here's what you need to do. Call Managing General Partner Jim or Fran and tell them you're a friend of both JAKIB Sports and Birds 365.
Hi, I'm Jim Muehlbronner, Managing Partner at Del Val Insurance Group. Give us a call. We're a local, knowledgeable agency, not an 800 number. Go Birds!